Every day across America, cops respond to thousands of calls for help. And sometimes that means confronting their worst fears. I'm William Shatner. Tonight, true stories of people in danger and the race against time to save their lives on Rescue 911. We begin in the quiet residential neighborhood of Prospect Park, Pennsylvania, on the evening of July 27th, 1989. Around 9:30 p.m., a call came into the police.
Police radio 41.
Yeah, this is man tagging this Atlantic station on 420.
Yeah.
There's two guys down here stealing a car, man.
One man tagging his lot?
Yes.
That's 4th and Lincoln, right?
Yes, and the boss says it's not cool.
Hold on for a second. Hey, Paul. Prospect Park, 4th and Lincoln. Theft of a vehicle in progress.
33, 4th and Lincoln. It's supposed to be a theft of auto in progress.
3324 responding.
When the call came in, Officer Ed Kenzel was less than a mile away.
The call was very vague at first, and I started heading down to the area. I imagined that the dispatcher had just gotten first-hand information and put it out to us.
Two white males, black males?
Two white guys.
Two white males?
They both have mustaches.
Two white males, I got so far.
Officer Paul Stoltz was on patrol in an unmarked car.
I heard Prospect Park answer up for the call, at which time I proceeded into the location to back them up.
What kind of car?
What kind of vehicle are you trying to get in? What's the...
It's a Grand National.
What's the... It's a black one?
Black Grand National.
Black Grand National.
It's a black Buick Grand National.
When I pulled up to it, I believed that it was someone with car problems.
Looks like they're working on it.
Okay, guys, hold it. Hold it. Stop where you are. Hold it. Stop. Wait. Ready. Stop. Okay, over here. Against car. Spread them.
I thought that it'd be a normal arrest. The suspect would be taken into custody without any real problem.
Bill Nichols, the third officer to arrive, lived just across the street from the gas station with his 14-year-old son and his wife, Julie.
First thing that alerted me that something was wrong was when I saw a Norwood police car go by my house. Bill was in there with his van, and I told my son, they're right down at the gas station. Let's go see what's happening.
Paul's chasing him.
We put this suspect in the back of Officer Nichols' vehicle.
Watch your feet.
You got it.
I had made several repeated calls to him to stop, but he refused, continued to flee.
Officer Nichols radioed to follow him into a alleyway, at which time I pulled behind him. He asked if I would sit and watch the prisoners in the back of the truck. He ran through the woods to where you could hear Officer Stoltz yelling for help.
All right, Paul, hold on.
The suspect was very strong. He wouldn't give in. He wouldn't let me cuff him.
Bill, over here! Bill!
A neighbor came up and informed me that there was a large fight and a lot of noise going on at 5th and Lincoln, behind the houses.
I was yelling out, screaming for help because it was dark. No other officers really knew where I was at that time. And I heard Officer Nichols' voice coming, and I could see his flashlight.
Got his hand! Get his door! Get him!
Police from Norwood, Prospect Park, and Ridley Park continue to arrive, including Officer Harold Snyder.
I could hear a commotion on the other side of a creek, so I notified the other officers by radio, and I started up there on foot.
Get it! I got his arm!
He was already parked on that side street, and I figured that's very odd. Bill wouldn't leave a prisoner in his van, even though it's locked, without somebody being there.
It seemed like the more we fought with him, the more he liked to fight, and the stronger he got. I wasn't aware that Bill was shot at first. I heard the round go off. Then I heard Bill say, "I'm hit." He shot me. He's got my gun.
When we continue.
I remember him telling me he was fighting to stay with us because I knew the whole time he knew he was dying.
Hang in there.
Police officer Bill Nichols had been shot at point-blank range with his own .357 Magnum by a suspect who was being arrested. When the shot was fired, Officer Nichols' wife, Julie, and 14-year-old son, Bill Jr., were near the scene.
When I first heard those shots, I said they must be firing warning shots to make him stop.
I quick twisted the weapon away from the direction of Officer Nichols. But I could feel the strength of this man. He was so strong. And he was pulling the gun back towards Officer Nichols. So I put my thumb in behind the trigger guard to stop the travel of the trigger.
You can't shoot.
And then this man pulled the trigger again and again and again, at least 6 times. And I was saying, stop struggling. You have a weapon. You're going to force us to kill you. And indeed, at that time, we had the moral and legal right to kill this man. But he cursed at me and said, kill me. Go ahead, kill me. He didn't care.
I could hear Paul Stoltz yell to me that Bill's been shot. Get an ambulance.
The situation was bordering on chaotic at first. There was a lot of confusion as to the proper location of the police officer.
He was so very strong, and I believe at the time he was on drugs, and that tripled his efforts.
I could feel the gun. Then I just started pulling. I had to tell Ed about 2 or 3 times that it was okay that I had the gun.
I could hear hollering and screaming. I could see some officers in the distance, but I couldn't pick Bill out at all.
Unbelievable amount of blood coming out of Officer Nichols. And I kept telling Officer Bill that it's going to be all right. The more I looked at Bill while I'm telling him this, the more I knew that I was lying to him. I grabbed the beach towel and I was just trying to control that bleeding. He was getting worse in 5 and 10 second increments.
I remember saying to myself, please, God, don't let him die, because I could see him bleeding real bad. His color, you could just see him turn him pale white.
We got officers on the street to put them to Lincoln Avenue on the rear alley, 5 o'clock.
Off-duty paramedic Mike Eckenrode heard the dispatchers struggling to pinpoint an exact location.
We're at the firehouse, and based on what we were hearing and the confusion that was apparent on the radio, we felt that maybe the crew that was on needed a hand. So at that point in time, the 3 of us went to the scene to see if we could render some assistance.
It's an indescribable feeling. It's grief, it's heartache, it's helplessness, it's terror, it's everything you can think of mixed into one moment.
The first paramedic on the scene was Michelle Ottaviano.
At that point in time, I wasn't 100% sure where the person who did the shooting was. It was a pretty scary situation. It wasn't until I knelt down next to the person who wasn't moving on the ground that I saw the uniform and realized it was a police officer that had gotten shot, that apparently had nicked an artery, the femoral artery. And with severing the femoral artery, every time your heart pumps, it pushes the blood out in spurts.
Michelle, what do you need?
There was an awful lot of confusion and commotion around the scene. I looked down and realized that the guy laying on the ground was Billy Nichols. And, I've worked in the town where I'd go on an ambulance call and Bill would come in and give me a hand carrying my equipment or, whatever needed to be done. It's a pretty rude awakening when you look down and see somebody kind of like looking back at you. That's pretty tough to do.
We're a small town here. Prospect Park is a little town. I didn't want Bill's wife hearing about it from the neighbors. I wanted me to tell her. That was my responsibility.
Very rarely do you see somebody who is critical as Bill was stay conscious I remember him telling me he was fighting to stay with us, because I knew the whole time, being a police officer, I knew he was dying, and that's what he was doing. He was dying. He was bleeding out massively.
I started getting the feeling that maybe something was wrong, that I told my son, go back up to the road and look down to our house and to see if there's a police car in front.
He was looking really bad. You begin to know that look. You know, that's the look of a dying person. There's no doubt about it. And the more you look at it, you know, and the more you work on the street, the more you see it. It's the look of a dying man. It really is.
When the ambulance left with Bill in the back, I really thought that we'd be going to a police funeral in a few days.
Officer Kenzel drove Bill Jr. back to where his mother was.
I said, he'd been shot. It doesn't look too good, but he's still alive now, and let's pray. And we did.
It was about 5 or 6 minute ride from the scene to the hospital. The condition that Bill was in, every action and every moment really counted. You know, you couldn't delay 5 or 10 minutes one way or the other.
Bill Nichols was immediately rushed into surgery. His condition was critical.
I had like a peace, a total calm that came over me. I just knew he would be okay. It would be bad, but I never had the feeling that he was going to die.
10 months have gone by. The man who shot Bill Nichols was convicted of aggravated assault. Bill has not forgotten the debt he owes to his best friend, Officer Ed Kenzel.
If it wasn't for him being there as quickly as he was and using his knowledge in placing his thumb behind the trigger, the suspect might have easily fired more rounds off. One of the primary reasons I'm alive today is because of my fellow officer, Ed Kenzel.
This brings back memory, doesn't it?
The fact that I could do something to save his life tickles me up and down, because if anybody deserves being saved, it's him. And the fact that I can look at him now and see him smiling and laughing at my jokes, that's worth $1 million. I love it.
More than a year after the incident, Bill has returned to active duty as a police officer.
It's very different when somebody that you know well, worked close with over the years and known him and know his whole family. It hits home. And we're a big family. We live and almost die together.
I knew that everyone did what they had to do because they did it. I had a second chance at life. And no words can express the feeling of thankfulness towards those individuals.
I'm very lucky to have Bill around. No one could take his place. There's not another man like him. I love Bill with all my heart. I always have since I was 16. Until the day I die. There'll be nobody else but Bill.